Let's do another Betsy Devos video, this time with Bernie Sanders.
In your statement, your prepared statement, you say, and I quote, "Students should make informed choices about what type of education they want to pursue post-high school and have access to high-quality options." Some of us believe that we should make public colleges and universities tuition-free so that every young person in this country, regardless of income, does have that option.
Let me stop you right there, Mr. Sanders. I already know how to answer your question. Thank you very much for the question. The answer is I partially sympathize with that idea because I think colleges are a scam and they have no business charging students any money whatsoever. And even if it was free, I still think it would be a scam and would not be worth it. However, on the negative side, if we made colleges free, it's very likely that even more people would waste their lives going to these horrible institutions. Therefore, I cannot agree with the idea to make colleges free. Please continue.
That's not the case today. Will you work with me and others to make public colleges and universities tuition-free through federal and state efforts?
Well, Senator, I think that's a really interesting idea, and it's really great to consider and think about. But I think we also have to consider the fact that there's nothing in life that's truly free. Somebody's going to pay for it. And so,
yes, you're right. You're right.
So
somebody will pay for it, but that takes us to another issue.
I think
and that is, if I may,
yeah.
and that is right now we have proposals in front of us to substantially lower tax breaks for billionaires in this country, while at the same time low-income kids can't afford to go to college. Do you think that makes sense?
Senator, I think if your question is really around how can we help college and higher education be more affordable for young people as they anticipate.
Actually, that wasn't my question. My question is, should we make public colleges and universities tuition-free so that every family in America, regardless of income, will have the ability to have their kids get a higher education? That was my question.
All right, Mr. Sanders, I will answer your question in more detail now. I am aware of other countries, such as in Europe, which may have very low fees for universities. And I do sympathize with that idea to some extent because I do think it's a ripoff. And I do think it's crazy. However, even if you were to implement that, I think then we would have to put severe, or I should say very arduous and deep thought into exactly what programs we're going to be allowing to be funded. For example, we don't want people to be taking degrees in things that aren't going to have opportunities in the economy, and we don't want people taking degrees in things that won't pay well, that are very expensive. So you at the very least, you would want the same amount of sanity that you see in other countries to do that. And I've not seen any evidence of a desire to pursue that. All I've seen is an evidence to throw more fuel on this so that we're funding this horrible, wasteful system even more. But I think what I would advocate is that maybe we stop doing the federal funding of colleges and we start encouraging, we think about ways we can encourage or allow or give the space or freedom to pursue non-academic credentials and start getting people gaining skills and experience or practical education. How about that? By the way, Sanders doesn't sound as rude. He doesn't sound quite like an asshole like some other people, at least not in this video.
Senator, I think we can work together and we could work hard on making sure that college or higher education in some form is affordable for all young people that want to pursue it. And I would look forward to that opportunity if confirmed.
Would you agree with me that if there is a mom watching this hearing who makes $30,000, $40,000 a year, single mom perhaps, who has to pay...
Whoa, single mom. Don't get me started on that. The whole single mom thing What is a single mom? A single mom to me is not a widow. A single mom to me is a woman who decided to have a child against the will of the man through promiscuous sex, and is probably using the Marxists to extract money from him and trying to raise that child on her own, except for financially. So don't get me started on the single mom thing, okay? Yeah.
$10,000 or $15,000 a year for childcare for her daughter, that is a burden that is almost impossible to deal with. What are your proposals about making childcare universal for our work?
Now that is very interesting. Childcare, making childcare universal. That that just seems like pushing the feminist thing even further. It's like, yeah, childcare is extremely expensive. I understand. But the reason why is because mothers used to raise their own children. And you might say, well, very few people can afford to do that these days. Well, then let's address those problems instead. Okay? Why? It's almost ironic that these leftist Marxists want these women devoting their lives to being married to these corporations rather than, they say, put people over profit, but then they're like, you should be working for a corporation instead of taking care of your own children. Like, excuse me? Who's the Marxist here?
Working families. Do you have ideas on that? Do you agree with that idea?
That certainly is a burden, and I can understand the challenge that family, that young mother would face in deciding how to best serve her child's needs. Again, I think if we're talking about the future of that child and their education, I would look forward to working with you. I know we have common ground on a lot of things, and we could find ways to work together to ensure that young mom's child will have a great opportunity for a great education in the future.
Okay, yeah, this is kind of outside of Betsy Devos's scope. I mean, like, I don't think she could give an answer quite as broad as I can, because she's dealing with education. It's like, okay, this person was already in a problem before they came to the opportunity of needing education. I mean, something happened with the mother and the father long before that we don't even know in this generalized hypothetical that led to her being a single mother. And now she's only making so much money and blah, 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 blah. By the way, it'd be nice if we could spend less on housing, but there's zoning laws that say you can't live in a smaller house, in a smaller apartment, and finance. There's just, it's a huge architectural societal problem. You need people to go to the fundamentals and work from the ground up on principles, because otherwise you'll never be able to track down the problem. Let's continue though. Mr. Sanders.
There are countries around the world which do provide universal, very inexpensive or free childcare.
That is true, Mr. Sanders.
Would you work with me in moving our government in that direction?
I believe we could move our government to these other countries. However, without our government here, we may be in some of an anarchist state.
Senator, again, I feel very strongly about the importance of young families having an opportunity for good child care for their children. I'm not sure that
But it's not a question of an opportunity. It's a question of being able, very often my Republican friends talk about opportunity. But it's not a question of opportunity. It's a question of being able to afford it. How do we help somebody who's making $8 or $9 an hour at a time when we can't raise the minimum wage?
Okay, $8 or $9 an hour? I'm sorry, but if you're a woman who has no husband, you have sex, you have no skills because the education system failed you, you can only make $8 or $9 an hour, which is what you're supposed to be making when you're like 16. Yeah, that is a serious problem. I agree. But the solution, we need to work backwards from the problem to get at the solution here. I mean, maybe you can introduce some stopgap measures in the meantime, but only if you introduce something to address some of these root problems at the same time. It's almost like the immigration thing where they say, yeah, we'll allow you to give amnesty for the people that came in as long as you build the wall first, or at the same time, I guess. And, or something. It's like, or we'll give an amnesty for a law, but you have to abolish that law. You can't give amnesty for a law and then not abolish it. That doesn't make any sense. Like you have to go to the root of a problem at the same time. If you're going to do a stopgap measure, you have to at least try to pursue that.
Wage here because of Republican opposition. How do we make sure that those moms can get quality child care that they can?
The answer is the mom is supposed to be doing the child care. And that is a cost, but that's when the husband supports the mother. Now, if you're talking about a widow or something, then that is where insurance is supposed to come in. And that's where life insurance comes in. That's what it's called, life insurance. And the other thing is the education system is largely a daycare for moms. So if between the life insurance policy and, we need to make sure people are using those or getting those, or what do you do if someone has promiscuous sex and gets pregnant and to a stranger and then has a child? These are legal things. Maybe they should have an abortion. Did you ever think of that? I thought you guys love abortions. Maybe she should have gotten an abortion. It's actually, that is a mind bender right there. These are the people always talking about how important abortion is and how important condoms are, but then they're always talking about single mothers. It makes no sense. There shouldn't be any single mothers. If there's a single mother, something went very, very wrong. Okay? Very, very wrong. There should be a tiny, it should be a fraction of 1% of a society where there's single mothers, okay? And when you have those situations, that's when you rely on insurance, and that's where you rely on charities, and you struggle, but you get through with some help. But we don't need to be building entire societies based on those mistakes. I'm not talking about the mistake of mistake of a child, but that's not the proper way to set out a life to begin with. You do your best as you can once in that situation. And of course, if you're the child, you shouldn't care. You should just try to do the best when you get older. Anyway,
can afford.
Well, I would look forward to helping that mom get a quality education for their child or their children so that they could look forward to a bright and hopeful future.
Okay, Betsy. All right. Well, all right. That's about all she could say there. Let's find another video and moving on.